Hello, everyone, and welcome to the wonderful Kristy Doucet-Touchet. Welcome to this Be to Lead conversation, Kristy. I'm very honored to be here with you and having this opportunity to have this conversation. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And Kristy is HR Director at School Mint, and she has been so generous with her time, and we are going to learn more about her story. Kristy, I'm sure you have a wonderful story to share, and maybe I would just start with a question and ask you, can you briefly introduce yourself? What would you say about yourself and where you are at now in your life, in your journey?
Okay. So my journey, well, in the HR world is a little different than most. I always say I actually picked out HR a long time ago when I was younger for a lot of different reasons. That career, I started in high school, fell in love with psychology, had a passion for that, knew I wanted to study all of this. But when I got actually into the workforce, I realized, I like business as well. And then my first job, I know it's finally being in a place in my life where I can talk about these things. I was sexually assaulted when I was 16 years old, actually at the job site. It took almost a year or so to even open up and talk about that or even let anyone know what happened. So that in combination, some other things that happened when I was studying in college, I knew that I wanted to get into a place where I can make a difference in people's lives and where greatest impact you can have is at work. So that has been my focus. And from there, I think, my story is always, for me, revolves around serving other people. I feel like that is my goal and my dream of life, to always try to help other people. If I can leave people in a better situation than I met them, then I did what I was supposed to do.
Wow. So thank you for sharing openly. That's what it is about, and authentically the beginning already of your story and of your journey. And it must have been not easy, as you shared, right? And I imagine that with this starting of your journey, you have become much more aware and sensitive towards what was coming your way and people around you. I assume is this, and so you are in a great position, I would say, really to point out key moments. The one you have described for sure challenged a lot you and made you grow fast, probably. What have been key moments that helped you overcome that experience and develop into the person that you are today, into the woman you are today, that achieved a lot, clearly?
I think the biggest thing that helped me grow in the hardest way, but in the best way, is I've surrounded myself around people who are not yes people. They will be glad to tell me and call me out on anything that I do wrong. And it's like the advice that I give everybody. If there's one thing you can do in this world, don't have yes friends, because they're not going to make you better. Some of the toughest leaders that I've worked for have pushed me at one of my prior supervisors really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Actually, things like this were not my comfort zone. I hated public speaking with a passion. But he knew my aspirations. He knew that I want to become, into the executive wing. I want to be that person. And the only way to do that is to do these types of things and get out of what you normally do, build a new skill set to grow into that. And you have to start somewhere. And when you have people that are, whether you think they're in your corner or not, when you look back, you can see them in your corner. They are pushing you forward. And so that is the best thing for me that has happened. And as I've gotten older, I do it more and more often. Comfortable in a lot of ways.
Well, in fact, it is not easy for many people. It is not easy when you have people that somehow challenge what you say, what you state, what you think. So you like to be challenged, right? And that tells you also that you have people in your corner that challenge you in a constructive way. So what would you say is a skill that you have learned so that you can appreciate being challenged? And I'm asking this because there are many people, as said, that maybe are fearful or are concerned about it and they don't feel comfortable. So what is a skill that you might suggest women, because we are addressing it particularly to women, to learn so that they are not afraid or scared by being challenged?
It's always scary to be challenged. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. It's always that you always have that fear. I got into listening to podcasts many years ago, and all these great self-help books. And one of the things I read that stood out to me the most was that basically said all humans react from one or two places, from fear or love. And just like you're saying, starting something new is fear. You have the fear of, not being good enough, being laughed at, not fitting in with society, right? People looking at you a certain way. But if you start responding to people in a world with the aspect of thinking, okay, how you challenge yourself and going, what am I thinking here? Am I responding from fear? Am I responding from love? And when you start realizing, I can question that about myself. And I know if I'm responding from fear, I'm probably not making the right decision because I can't let fear control my life. I know it's innate in all of us. We that's just who we are, but you got to fight that natural urge. And if you realize I'm doing this because truly I'm doing it for something that I love and it is the right thing to do, then you're making those right decisions. It's never easy, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So like as a female, I challenge you to start doing little small things, one thing at a time, even if it's, I don't know, going to a restaurant or trying food you don't normally eat. It's those little small things that build up over time. This doesn't happen overnight. You got to take it small and start trying all these different things.
So that's wonderful. It seems what you're suggesting is practicing little steps at the time, feeling the fear, stay with it, go through it and transform it and become aware that it is better if you learn to respond from a space of love than react from a place of fear. And in your experience, Kristy, when you did that and you have taken these small steps beyond fear, did they build something for you apart from courage, I imagine? But
it's opened so many doors, like things I never thought I would actually enjoy doing and liking has surprised me. I've picked up new hobbies. I've met so many people. Gosh, how many people have I met? I have learned the value in relationships in a whole different way. I have no more fear of going up to a stranger and saying hello. That's no longer, because I realize if I can find a way to connect with you, they can easily build a relationship, and you just never know what you're going to get out of that relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a CEO or a janitor of an organization. Everyone has great value that they bring into your life and things that you can learn from them. And the more of these relationships and that you build over time only makes you better.
It's wonderful. So going beyond our fear, actually beyond fear, there are opportunities. That's what you're saying. Opportunities in terms of really discovering something more about yourself, building different relationship, and noticing what's good in people and in situations, I assume. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic. And if you look back now from where you stand, now you have had a beautiful career. You are HR director in this schoolment. And if you look back, would you say that you had mentors or role models that actually supported you, helped you in a specific way? And if you have those figures, did you look for them or they just happened to be in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone will always say they had some type of mentor, someone who guided them along the way. I did not look for them. It just kind of developed into a relationship. One was one of my first supervisors when I was at the sheriff's office, who's actually still a very close and dear friend of mine. She was a powerful woman and, in a male dominated field. And through her, I actually learned I was very shy. I was a complete introvert. She helped me get out of my shell. She forced me to start speaking more. and through that has built such a strong relationship. I still, will call her up, hey, I'm in these situations, I need some advice. And then my other two supervisors after that, both males, have like, one was more, his mentorship was more of a kinder, empathy driven leadership, always trying to encourage and build out the best. One of my other leaders was probably actually, he was the toughest leader I ever worked for. But at the same time, I know, looking back, the reason that those were, it was done that way was because he saw the potential in me and was kept pushing me to get there. And all of these individuals I still have very strong relationships with today, and I'm grateful for it. And I turn to them constantly for advice on situations because they are older, they have more experience, they're in different types of industries, so they can see things. A lot of times, it's human nature. We get so involved in a situation we can't see or we can't pull away from it. So it's good to have people who, again, are not going to be yes people. You can tell them the situation, they're on the outside looking in and can give you solid advice to help you see the things that you are missing because you're too close to that angle.
So it seems you have been very lucky to find this supervisor of on your path. And just to expand a little bit on that, because sometimes we don't realize that we have mentors in our life or role models because we simply don't recognize that. Just to expand a little bit. So when you say that they contributed, right, you're talking about giving advice. I'm just wondering if their support was having conversations that made you aware of things and gave you advice on how to move forward. Apart from these conversations, for sure, very important and very enlightening, have you had the opportunities with them to have chances, opportunities, doors open for you? Did you ask for that? Did they offer? How did you behave around that so that we can share that part as well?
I think the biggest is, I would say my second supervisor opened doors for me that I didn't even know existed. When I started working with him right out of college. I was young. It was oil and gas, very fast paced, reactive environment. And again, I was a female in a male dominated field. But he saw I really wanted this. I wanted to move up. And what he did for me, I didn't even realize this was going on, but he would give me opportunities, he'd give me chances, and I kept on taking more and more responsibilities and learning more under him. And next thing I know, I'm not even 30 years old, and I am now running an HR marketing department for a company with 1,200 employees. And it just happened because that person believed in me. They saw the potential and they actually gave me the opportunity. So yes, sometimes it is luck of finding that right person who's willing to take a gamble on you and give you that opportunity.
So I'm really curious to learn, because it seems you did have a great opportunity and experience. So how did you show up so that he or she could see you and learn about you and giving you opportunities? Do you recognize that there were a specific way that you showed up in those environments? And how did you do that so that they could see you and so that we can learn how to?
So I think for me, it was simply taking on my own, taking on own responsibilities. No one actually said, hey, do this. I just went and started doing that. So taking ownership of what I was doing in the workforce, and also doing it consistently, constantly showing up and having the same consistent performance every day, doing your best. And of course, I say this loosely, some days, sleep, you're going to have, harder days, like that's life, but you constantly give your best into whatever you're doing. And you just slowly, it just starts building, that trust starts building with that person over time. If they see that you're consistently doing things and you're wanting to take on more roles and showing that initiative, it helps. It makes a difference. Trust doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So there's things that you have to learn to build. And the quickest way to build it is through consistency.
Beautiful. So I've heard ownership. I heard showing up. I heard consistency. These are elements, and proactivity, because you said I just throw myself into what I wanted to do and what I would discover that I liked, right? So be
Yes.
authentically who you are, own what you want, show up for what you want, and build trust, you say, because obviously the other person or people I'm working with, they need to know me and I need to know them in order for have this opportunity. So here we go. We have a path that we can
Yes.
already follow. Excellent.
You said that perfectly.
You mentioned a few times that you were in a male dominated environment. And unfortunately, this is something that we hear a lot. And there is for sure some truth. I'm sure that we women have biases as well towards this.
We do.
Isn't it? I think that we need to own that too. Speaking of ownership, right?
Yes.
We want to be fair, also towards our colleagues. And so, if you had the chance and the opportunity to talk to a male colleague who is a leader in your organization, or if you had this experience before, but let's consider if you had to meet a person today, a male leader today, what would you tell him? What would you suggest him to do, or what would you share with him so that he can show up differently, so that both you and him can move on and collaborate in a different way, enhancing each other roles instead of constituting a barrier for each other? What would you say to male colleagues, male leaders?
I think the biggest thing is to realize the fundamental difference between how men and women are raised, right? There's a lot of research behind that where men are encouraged at a very young age to take risk and accept rejection, where women are taught that we have to be accepted by society. And so that means we have to be more reserved and more quiet and do what other people basically tell us, because that is what we are taught since we are 5 years old, and that's how we've been trained, contrary the opposite of men. So a lot of times the difference between men and women succeeding in the workforce is because of that, because men are willing to take those risks. They're not afraid of that, where women are. It's just it's innate in us. What I would tell them is, to get a female to open up is slowly start giving them those opportunities to allow them to show up. Give them a safe space. Challenge them in a very, in a safe area where, hey, can you take on this? And then see how they perform from there. And then after you do that a few times, you'll start seeing a female opening up more and more and more. I think they just need that a place where they feel I can do it. And even if I mess up, I'm not going to be reprimanded or feel like I'm going to get fired, the next day. It's those basic, simple areas. And I think men could see a lot of difference in women, because women do have a lot to offer. I think a lot of it's just all kept inside because that's what we were taught to do.
Beautiful. I love the way you said it. So I guess, would you say therefore, Kristy, that this is not happening today? Let me ask you the opposite question. What do you think is the main barrier, or one of the most, the biggest barrier that we have when we have to navigate our careers in a male-dominated environment?
I think it's our own fears as females. Honestly, it's our own wanting, or we get in our own ways. Honestly, we think that I am not going to be valued here. I am not good enough. This person may have more experience. They may be better at that. And we actually, I find as females, we get way too far into our heads and thinking these things, where again, we're not willing to take that risk. We try to stay in that safe zone. You have to get out of that fear zone, and it's not easy. That takes time, but you have to. That is how you're going to grow. That is how you're going to expand, not just in work, but in life in general. And I hope, like I have 2 young girls, I hope that I can teach them that as they're growing up, that, hey, I don't want you to go inward. I want you to be outward. I want you to be proud of who you are. And I want you to take chances. And those chances may lead to failure in a sense, but that's not really failure. It's an opportunity to learn. I messed up here. Just don't do it again. And this is what I gained out of that experience. So I would want to tell women that just take that chance. You'd be surprised of what actually could play out for you. You don't want to look back at your life and go, God, I wish I had done that. Just do it. And if it doesn't work, then try it a different way next time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And in fact, the next question would have been, if you had a daughter, you have 2 daughters.
Yes.
So what would be one piece of advice that you would give them, since they are, how old are they? I assume they are young,
They
right?
are 8 and 4.
Beautiful. So already hearing from you this advice, so take chances. That would be the one piece of advice, the most important piece of advice you would give them, right?
It would be, because I don't want the world to take away from who they are. The world can be cruel. It can try to mold you into something that you are not. I want my daughters to find out who they are. And that is by trying different things, having the courage to get out there to find out what matters and what's important to them. And no one else can determine that but themselves. And that allows them to show up more authentically in the world.
Wow, that's beautiful. And would you say the same to men? If you had a little boy, if you had a son, what would you tell him so that when all of them grow up, we have potentially different environments? So what would you say to a little boy in with respect to this?
I would say the same thing. And I'd also make them aware, you know, it's kind of one of those, as the world's changing, we're learning in certain areas. You have to realize, like I always say, I'm a white female to some extent. Being a white female, I get privilege, right? In this world, whether I ask for it or not, I do. It is something that you have to understand. And when you grasp that concept, and as a male, you're going to get some privilege, right? You get an extra because you are a male. The world historically has liked or has leaned towards men being the providers and the big bosses. I would challenge them to kind of remind themselves of that dynamic and allow them to, or teach them how to help and open doors to other people. Give back, allow them, other people to expand with them.
Beautiful, beautiful. That would definitely create a different society in time, isn't it?
Yeah, it would. And it does start with our next generation. So it is my responsibility to raise my kids to see it that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you had one last piece of advice for all people that will listen, could be men, could be women, that will listen to our conversation, excuse me, what would you say? You have one option.
For me, it's not to live life in fear. I keep saying that because I think a lot of things that we do, whether it's not taking those chances or even down to being closed-minded, discrimination, all of these things are all driven by fear. It's never easy to admit that I did something because I was scared. So that's a very humbling experience as well. So I challenge people to go back and look into their lives and go, when did I act from a place of fear and what happened from that situation? I think it's very eye-opening for anyone to do that and self-reflect. And it provides you a path forward. And then when you're not in that area of fear, then you can try new things and find out who you really are as a person.
That's awesome. So, not to live life in fear, discover who you are, take chances, and build from there. Not
Yeah.
not react to fear, but respond to love.
Yes. I mean, you only get one chance at this, right? we don't get multiple. Um, I like I always said, I don't, good or bad or different. I kind of learned this from my parents. I had some of the great parents, but I know at their end of their lives, they always have those regrets, right? So they I wish I had done this, or I wish I did that, and those regrets actually put them in not good places in life where they were at the end. They were unhappy. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that for me. I don't want to do that for my children. And the only way to stop that, I always will think where I want to be when I'm 80 years old and how do I work backwards from there? How do I become that person? And one of the ways to become that person is to go, okay, I have to take these chances. I can't let fear rule my life. I can't stop living because I'm scared.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Kristy. And I think that you have given us so many insight on how we can actually be more confident, go beyond fear, create something new, and let our being be, I would say, right beyond fear. So thank you very much. It's been very precious. Is there anything else that you would like to add that I have not asked you, or you would simply would like to say and it didn't come up yet?
Um, I think for women, again, and it's tied to that for your stuff, but networking, right? So like going out, meeting people, I know it's uncomfortable, but boy, that's something else in my career. And as I'm growing,
Mm.
I've learned has opened up so many doors for a lot of different reasons. It may be just learning something new. It may be I met this person's going to introduce me to this person. Next thing I know, another job opportunity comes up, or I get to meet someone who is taking me to. I'm now getting involved with this new nonprofit, and I'm getting to meet all these other people on this board. It's an opportunity you can't pass up. And I know a lot of women don't want to do that, but that is one of the keys to getting out in the world. And another thing is don't be afraid of conflict. I think my generation, a lot of the millennials, Gen Zs were taught to like fear conflict. Conflict should not be bad. It shouldn't be something that's feared. We should be open to having that because that leads to better relationships, stronger trust, and ultimately great decisions.
Awesome. So networking and not having fear of conflict.
Yes.
One step for networking for those women, for those of us that sometimes we don't know how to do it now. Moreover, now that we don't know now we can start meeting again. But
yes,
give us the first step. What do? We want to network. So where would you invite us to start?
I think, I'm an introvert. And being an introvert, I would probably say the easiest place that I got started was on the internet, right? Social media, because you're not, I'm not directly face to face. You can go to LinkedIn. You'd be amazed that, hey, I see this woman who's done all this great stuff. I really want to get to know her. Click on her profile, add her as a friend, send a message. It could start that small. It could start at, just church events or, small work gatherings. And then you're starting to get, slowly acclimated with other people. But I know as an introvert, for me, social media did give me that first push in that direction. And then over time, it started growing from there.
Excellent. So, Kristy, I assume that if people want to reach out to you and know more about you and your story, they can find you on social media, on LinkedIn. I know you from LinkedIn. I don't know if you have other platform you want to invite people to connect with you. Is LinkedIn okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely on LinkedIn. I've, in the last few months, I've gotten off of some of the other social media sites just because I got a young family. I want to spend more time with them, see my focus. As you go through life, focus change. So a lot of my focus is kind of on my children at this point, but I'm definitely still on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Kristy, thank you so much. It's been amazing having you here and having this conversation. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure people that will look at our conversation will love your story too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.